All right, welcome everyone at NACE and NACEF. I am Claire LeBeau. I'm the Director of Communications at NACEF. And we have another, we call it a Facebook Live, but we're on all kinds of platforms. So I think we're going to have to stop calling it Facebook Live at this point with some of the great coaches and esports directors at some of the schools around the country. So let's go ahead and just jump in and start with introductions. James, you want to take it away?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Coach James Llewellyn at Kaiser University, Pembroke Pines. We're near Miami, Florida, about 10 minutes away. Been in the college esports space for about 2 years now, a little over 2 years. Throughout college, we didn't have esports competitions when I was in college from 2012 to about 2016 at my school. I played college soccer and college cycling, racing bikes instead. So, yeah.
Cool. Let's see, Lamar.
On the spot. Hello, everyone. Name's Lamar Daniels. I'm the director of the esports program here at Lourdes University in Sylvania, Ohio, which is Northwest Ohio, right across the border from Michigan. I have been in my current position for 3 years now. Though this will be the end of my third year, going on to my fourth. I also was a college athlete. I ran track and field, played volleyball, and then additionally was on an acrobatics program. So got a little bit of the traditional athletics experience as well.
Cool. We have between the bike racing and acrobatics, like those are not your average everyday sports to be involved with. So Alex, pressure is on. What you did when you were in college.
Yeah, so I was also a former traditional sport athlete. My first 2 years, I went to Ohio Dominican University in Columbus, Ohio. And then I transferred to Ashland University where I graduated, and I played esports here for 2 years. I was the Fortnite team captain. That was back when the program started in 2018. And then I started the head esports coach position just a year ago. So my first anniversary here. But yeah, I was also a former athlete playing soccer, track, cross country, and then going on into esports. So
okay, that's cool. So at least you had it in college, right? Because it sounds like the others didn't yet.
The first year it started, one of the very first to get a Fortnite scholarship. So very cool.
That's awesome. Very good. We like talk of scholarships when you're talking to high schoolers. That's for sure.
The bigger scholarship than I got for soccer and track. So it was
really
awesome. Yeah.
Wow, that is really cool. And so where are you now? What school are you at?
Ashland University. I'm the head esports coach now.
And that is in what state?
Ohio, Northeast Ohio, or Ohio. Almost central. Yeah.
Okay. We got a lot of East Coast going on. I'm from California, and I think we got to get the schools out here to step up a little bit. Yeah. Good. So we were talking before we started and just kind of talking about some of the different committees you guys are on and the roles that you play within NACE itself. And it's interesting to me. So I thought maybe you could just share a little bit about the resources that NACE provides and how those might be helpful for kids as they're getting ready to go on to college. And I'm go for it. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Yeah, go ahead and go. So I'm currently on the competition council for NACE, basically overseeing just the general competition structure of, what all of our different leagues and different titles looks like. It's pretty exciting job. Shout out to Adam Antor, who is the chair of our competition council. Then also JJ Myers, who works at the national office, and all the work that he does with us. So I mean, competition has always been at the heart of what I've liked to do. I've loved to be a competitor. That's why I love sports. That's why I loved esports as well when I first got into it. And so it's really awesome to be able to help, kind of formulate that structure for just like a national body as well is pretty cool. So I think NACE does a really good job at how we structure things as far as like our competition wise, the different titles that we're able to offer, and kind of making sure that we keep it as well and smoothly flowing as we possibly can.
Right.
And I'm on the Eligibility Enforcement Committee. I was also on the Awards Committee beforehand, which basically was for the National Convention that happens in July every year. for NACE and selecting awards for player of the year, player for certain games, coach of the year. But then I moved into the chair of the Eligibility Enforcement Committee, which, as it sounds, enforces eligibility. We look into usually the busy time of the years at the start of the semesters with schools filling out intent to compete forms with students and eligibility certificates, and answering different eligibility inquiries and making sure schools follow and abide by the NACE bylaws.
Yeah, I'm also on the Eligibility Enforcement Committee, and I'd say the most important part of that is that all the students have to be full-time, with 12 credits, maintaining a 2.0 GPA and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's important. I know we have in NACEF, we also have requirements for students who are going to compete as far as GPA and school attendance and that kind of thing. And I think that's a motivator for a lot of kids who, like maybe they haven't found their place yet in school. We have so many students tell us, like, when they found the esports team or club on their high school campus, they're like, I found my people. And then they, you just kind of step everything up, right? You go to class more, you participate more, you want to get better grades so that you're eligible to compete and all of that. I think those standards are super important. So it's good to hear that NACE is doing the exact same thing. So we have a super easy topic to cover today, something that I'm sure we all excel at. And that is balance, right? The balance. If you're a student and you're trying to balance your school, your, possibly a job, your esports, you're just being a human being, right? being a person and having friends and maybe doing other sports. So that's the lightweight topic today, is balance. And so I guess I'll just start from the really high level. Like, what kind of general advice do you have for students if they're trying to figure out how to balance all those things or how to juggle all those things?
I guess I'll go first. I guess prioritizing key factors within your life and school and esports. First things first, school is important. You can't play on the esports team if you're not doing your homework, if your GPA is below the requirement. So prioritizing school first and making the time for that. I'm sure all coaches will understand, be like, hey, I got this big test coming up. I don't know if I can make practice tonight. Stuff like that. Also, one of the things I always did, and I know a lot of people do, is routine. Having a routine day to day can really help with your time management and balancing everything, especially with esports. Can be very demanding at times.
Yeah, I think the routine part is very important, and to have the consistency in your schedule too, and making sure that you're prioritizing the right things, especially if there's a certain class you're not good at. I was never good in math or statistics or anything like that. So make sure I'm prioritizing those first. Make sure I'm getting the tutors and help that I need for those classes too.
I'll also say, I'll kind of springboard off here. It's kind of being okay if whatever routine or schedule that you're on doesn't always work out well. I try my best to keep the same balance as well. Now as a fully functioning adult, and part of that, I love to work out, and I try to always get in the gym like at least 3 times a week. But sometimes I'm not able to stick on the schedule, or I'm not able to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I have to be flexible. And I think a big thing is, like, sometimes I think as students try to get rolling on the schedule or the plan and everything, like, I think sometimes, like, there's a little discouragement when you don't follow your plan perfectly, right? But as a college athlete, like, you're always gonna have to be flexible. That's when you play, that's in your game, that's outside of it. Obviously we're in esports, so there's a lot of flexibility that needs to happen with that. And so make sure you're not just having that whenever you compete, but be okay with the fact that it might not always go smoothly, but you're going to be able to get back on track.
Yep. And I'm sure Alec and Lamar will agree with this, being a college athlete. There's a lot of sacrifices that you have to make, whether that's, hanging out with friends or you have to miss practice because you need to study for this test because statistics is hard. I agree with him. But yeah, sacrificing, there's a lot of sacrifices to be made being a college athlete.
Yeah, for sure. How do you, you're talking about setting priorities, like what do you all do personally to decide, like, what are my priorities?
Whenever I was a student, prioritized classes first above all else, and then responsibilities within the team, whether that's practice, games, things like that, and then try to say like your free time and your time with friends will probably come third after everything. Trying to make time for it is going to be great, but those are part of the sacrifices that James was talking about. Where if your friends are traveling over the weekend, but you have a match or two, you might not be able to go, and those are just some of the things we got to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that usually happened around this time of the year for me, for like spring break and everything. Then we had soccer games, cycling races happening, and no, I can't go to that because
Mm-hmm.
I have sport.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How does it feel to you to do that? To say like, oh, I'm gonna pass on this thing because I set this priority. Is that easy all the time?
I think it comes easier the more that it happens, and then it just comes naturally, and maybe you don't even see it as a sacrifice anymore because you just love what you do.
Yeah, and when you do have the time to hang out with friends or do the things that you've been missing on, it's going to feel so much better once after you've accomplished, doing well in classes, doing well with esports, whatever else. It's going to feel a lot better.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think definitely, and especially usually a lot of your closest friends are people on your team.
Yep.
So you're not always like isolated when there are those tough decisions that you have to make, because a lot of times there are other people that are with you that are kind of in the same boat, and so it makes things a little bit easier sometimes.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the great thing about sports, esports, is your main friend group usually comes from what you're already doing. So a lot to relate on and compare to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you can support each other through it. That's something that's important to look at too. Is like if your friend group is supportive of the sacrifice you're making, or maybe if they're pulling you down, you might just want to say like, hey, there's a reason I'm doing this. This is important to me. And I think, for the most part, people will respect that. But I know I've had a few times when I have to kind of call out like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then the people around me be like, okay, I see. I'm with you on that. So if one of you, I'm sorry, I can't remember, one of you mentioned like if you're having a hard time in a class, you would maybe like be working with a tutor so that you could get your grades up because that's a priority. What kind of resources do you think are out there, both in high school and in college, to help with this balance and with success overall?
Yeah, at Ashland specifically, we have free tutoring and drop-in tutoring for almost any subject. And then we also have a writing center for the more English classes or essay-based classes. Those are probably your go-to spots for just class-specific help. And then your professors are always there as well. Our class sizes are relatively small, kind of like high school-like class sizes, 30, 40 at max. So you get to know your professors really well on a personal level. And you can ask them questions that if you need help on a certain subject or a certain part of a class and anything like that. They're great help as well. And then you also have your coaches or teammates. If you have any of them in class, your coaches, you can always ask for advice and things like that. Who should I contact for help? You have plenty of resources available around you.
Yep. And I like the backpack off what he said about the small class sizes. Plugging in small schools, great. You really get to know your professor. I went to a large school, then I went to a small school, and getting to know your professors is very important. Don't be scared of your professors. Your professors want you to succeed. They will work with you. If you're having struggles, or you're gonna have a struggle, just talk to them and they will work with you. You can remake assignments most of the time because they want you to succeed. And also, the writing lab, math studio, is a great place to get everything done. And also student services, they have so many resources that I didn't even know about until I became like a full-time adult, and then actually learned about all the student resources. So go to your student services, figure out the resources they have. There's even more resources that'll make you more successful in the future, like career opportunities. There's a lot in each school. So.
Yeah, and additionally, at Lords, where you also have the same things to kind of help support. At this point, and for any student that is listening, just about every university has some type of academic success center, academic help center to really kind of help you out. I know one thing is that we started to see at Lords, and I know at a number of universities across the country, is focus on helping out on the mental health side as well. And if your school has mental health resources, definitely don't be shy to use those as well. But once I got to grad school, and grad school was a big transition for me. We talked about small school, the big school. I went to a really, really small college, and then transition to this enormous public university for graduate school, and it was a culture shock to me, and something that was hard for me to deal with just the transition from not being in a tight knit community anymore. But the mental health services that they had on campus really helped me out to be able to get through that. So sometimes that's what is needed when it is hard to get through a class. Like sometimes it's not just the class you're struggling with, and it's more on top of that. And so making sure that you're in tune with that is really important.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think for a lot of people too, the transitions during COVID from like in person to online to hybrid to like now we're in class, now we're not. That's it, like that kind of topsy-turvy, turbulent environment is hard, and it's great that those resources are available. So yeah, good advice to take advantage of those. Something that I realized that we skipped over at the beginning that I would love to hear from all of you is what titles you play in your programs at your schools. I know students are going to be interested in that. And then also if you offer scholarships. So let's do a quick round robin on that one. Let's see, Alec, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So Ashland University, we currently have 5 varsity titles. We have Super Smash Bros, Overwatch, Fortnite, CS:GO, and what's the other one? I'm trying to think. Overwatch, CS:GO, Fortnite, Super Smash Bros, and Hearthstone. Can't forget about Hearthstone. And then we're also adding Rocket League and Call of Duty next year as well. So we'll have 7 varsity titles, and we do offer scholarships as well.
What kind of scholarships?
Partial for now.
Okay, awesome. And is that across all the titles?
Yeah, so we have 42 students total, and I think 30 or so are on scholarship.
Okay, oh, that's great. That's good. Do you ever look at other areas? One of the things we really focus on at NASEF is not just the gameplay, but then also, picturing your career once you go beyond college and you want to work in a certain area. So, if there's a certain aspect that you're interested in, like shoutcasting or streaming or, analytics or exercise physiology, all those things, do you consider those scholarships as well? Or do you help students who are applying who are going to major in those things to find those? Or is that kind of on their own?
As far as Ashland goes, we're a little bit behind on the media team side of things, but I've been wanting to add our social media team, adding shoutcasters on scholarship, adding social media coordinators on scholarship, and people in positions like that to help them get prepared and build on their resume for if they're interested in a position like that after college. But I know a lot of other universities have great media teams.
Yeah, they seem to show off when we do these live streams. They'll be like, here I am, and check out my amazing background. And you're just so jealous of all the equipment that they have back there. Yeah. Lamar, how about you? What titles do you play at your school?
So we currently support League of Legends, Overwatch, Rocket League, Super Smash Brothers, and Hearthstone as well. We do offer scholarships. They are partial as well, partial tuition scholarships here. But they are able to be stacked on with academics as well. So that was one thing that I found important. I remember when I was doing my recruiting, and I remember going to a school. Actually, that's in Ohio that has an esports program, but I won't call them out. But they were like, "Oh yeah, you have too good of an academic scholarship, so you're not going to get an athletic scholarship." And I understood because it eventually comes out of the athletic team, but it really is just like, oh man, that kind of stinks. It's nice that we're able to do that at our program to be able to do that. And then additionally, we're on the same boat of like we've been starting to do better at like getting other people on the managerial side into the program. We have someone who came in as a manager for now, bringing someone in to do social media. Also allow that to be the current students on the team, especially those who want to do that as a career of like, hey, here's a great opportunity for you to get that experience, build a portfolio so that once you graduate, you're able to show an employer like, hey, I've done all this stuff. The one unique thing that always happens with us so far is that people who get brought in for those opportunities, a lot of times they end up wanting to compete anyway. So it just happens like that, which I think is really, really awesome.
Right. That's cool. Our NASEF's marketing coordinator, Angie, shout out to Angie because she's awesome. She went to UC Irvine. She was a team manager for the Overwatch team there.
Nice.
And, and then that did give her like great experience. And like you said, having that portfolio of things that you've done, that completely separates you when you go to interview for jobs. So whether it's through internships or, things like you're describing, it's so important for sure. James, how about you? What titles are you guys playing at your school?
Yeah, so we're playing Apex Legends, Call of Duty, Overwatch, Valorant, FIFA Soccer, Madden. Oh, what was Madden? Super Smash Brothers, and there's probably another one I'm not thinking of. But we're going to be adding League of Legends and Rocket League, and we did have a Rainbow Six team, but we had 3 members graduate off of it last year, so now we didn't have one for this year. So hopefully adding Rainbow Six again for next fall, and we do offer scholarships as well, partial. And with the whole team manager, graphic design, we do have one student who was on one of our Apex Legends teams, and he's actually back on Valorant right now. But he had to take a little break off of the esports because of work. But he was helping us. He kept the scholarship by helping make our game day flyers, result flyers, all of our social media flyers. He's really good at it. He's in the graphic design major as well, so it really helped his portfolios for classes. And we are starting an esports management emphasis at our school. It just started this January, so got a few students that's already came here for that. Hopefully a lot more in the fall, and we'll start a little student government organization, and they'll be getting hands-on experience from some of those classes like event management. So it's really good for them to there.
Yeah. Hearing you all list off all the titles that you have at your schools makes me think for our teachers or general managers who are watching, who may be overwhelmed by the thought of, how am I possibly going to run a program where there are so many different titles that can be played? It's not like I'm the soccer coach and we're playing soccer. There's so much. So do you have any advice for those clubs or those teachers who are trying to oversee in their spare time programs where the kids are playing multiple titles?
Go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say it's really important to divvy out the responsibilities. Having like a team captain that can take up some of the responsibilities away from the director or like the head coach could be a huge help into organizing. When matches are, when to practice, scheduling, everything like that. It just takes off a lot off the plate.
Yep, and gives those students that experience too that they can put on resumes, etc. So yeah,
Right.
Passing out those responsibilities. Good point.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is good to lean on captains. Obviously, if being in high school, I know most high school programs are usually like that one single person kind of in charge. But realize that at the end of the day, like the kids, I know sometimes it might feel like, man, you wish you could do more, but sometimes just realize that your presence being there, allowing that program to even exist in the first place and grow from that is honestly just enough for what the kids need.
Yeah. How about game skills coaching across that many titles? How do you manage that?
I would say for me, I'm a one-man show here. I don't have coaches for each game. So I specifically do not play all 10 of those games. That would be impossible to be a good enough coach for all those. So my games are like Apex Legends, League of Legends, and a little Overwatch, where I can actually help with game skills and coaching in that. And in the other games like Super Smash Brothers that I have really no idea about, we have the game captains that will do the VOD reviews and have the little sessions after practices or after games to go over what was needed and what to do better and what we could have done, all that.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, but having a team manager or team captain kind of doing most of the work there. But for like me specifically, Fortnite, I'm able to help out and coach and VOD review with them. And then we also do some online coaching through like Gamer Sensei or other sites like that. Well, for example, last year we had Coach Shifty. He coaches like the British Hurricane for Overwatch League and whatnot. We had a few sessions with him going over VOD reviews and getting his perspective on everything. So getting in high level coaches and just for a few sessions like that can make a big difference.
Yeah, for us, I'm blessed that I have I have a great grad assistant. He coaches our League of Legends team. I coach our Overwatch team on our teams, I guess plural, on hands, which is great. I love coaching. Coach track and volleyball, high school and college. So like it's, I know some directors are like, man, I wish I'd just be a director, but I'm like, man, I love being able to be on the coaching side. But for the other titles that we have, like a lot of it is again kind of leaning on the students. I think having some traditional sport experience does help me to be able to see some things. I'm not the best Rocket League player in the world at all, but like sometimes you can just see something and just notice like, hey, I might not know the game, it just doesn't necessarily look right. And I think Rocket League is kind of easy with that. But so yeah, I'm blessed, great grad assistant, and I'm able to kind of do some things on my own as well.
Yeah.
Another thing I'd like to add is I'll sit in the calls for most of the games and practices, and being part of the soccer team and things like that in the past, I can notice a lot of the bad constructive criticisms or the just bad communication overall. Where people get maybe a little too toxic towards their teammates and things like that, able to kind of be the mediator there and be able to show them like or let them know like, hey, what you said here wasn't the most constructive thing, trying to keep everything positive and helping out that aspect too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. We have from NASEF, we work with Cloud9 Training Grounds, and we run coaching on specific titles like once a month ish, where we'll have a highly ranked player giving advice to the students, and that's super important too. Is just to be humble, right? To listen, to acknowledge that you need coaching, and to seek it out. Because I know it is available, like through NASEF, it's completely free. Like everything that we offer, it's free for the students to participate in. So it's a great way for them also to maybe build a base of skills before they come to a program like yours. But then you have to be willing to mold into the new program as well once you're there, right? So one of the things you mentioned was just about sort of those skills that kids have, or maybe need to be molded a bit as far as being a good teammate. So what are some tips that you have for students who are developing those habits now? How can they be a good teammate? I'm gonna start with Lamar because I think the other two have started the other questions.
One of the big things I mean, this is really big. I've learned as I've been coaching, is understanding that different, and so I'll say it from like a team standpoint. Different team members on your team are just gonna, respond to things differently, right? There are certain players on my team that I can be blunt, direct, maybe joke with on something if a mistake is made. And certain members that you just can't. Some members you can say something publicly in front of the team. Some you need to say something privately. So for people looking to be a really really good teammate, it's just kind of realizing like sometimes if it's someone that is a good friend of yours, you kind of understand them a little bit better, and hey, I know if I say it in this way, this is how they're going to take it because that's just their personality. And I think that's fine. I think it's just one of the biggest things. I tell this to like all my captains all the time because all of them in some way, shape, or form are leaders, right? And a number of them are looking to become directors in their own future. It's just like, hey, the biggest thing I'm always learning and always improving on is understanding how I need to communicate to each individual person, and I understand that. So if you can realize that as a teammate already from the jump, like you're already leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of other players.
Yeah, for sure. Alec, anything to add on being a good teammate?
Yeah, kind of in line with that is being able to listen to your teammates and kind of understanding and knowing how they react to certain things. Like you may be able to joke about a mistake. Some may take that more personal than others, and it might take more time to get to know them better. And the more and more you play with teammates, the better you guys are going to get chemistry wise and everything like that. So through consistency and just good communication and understanding as well. And back to what I said earlier about constructive criticism, it's a very thin line between saying something too mean versus something that's actually positive and constructive. After a teammate makes a mistake, it's very important the way you say it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Anything to add, James?
Yeah, so we probably hear this all the time, but like selflessness, there's no I in team, and you have to communicate with your teammates, check in on them. Just don't talk to them during practice time. See how they're doing on the weekend. If they're good with their grade, if not, if they're good with their grades, see how they're doing. Anything wrong, it's checking in on your teammates. Holding each other accountable as well, for certain things like missing practice or not missing. But yeah.
That's great. How can, if students are thinking about competing, like what advice do you have for them so that they can perform at their best when they're competing? All right, James, take it.
I would say you have to be prepared. I mean, that's part of the routine. Like I know some people have like superstitions before games, rituals, but to be prepared, keep that same routine. Get on an hour and a half earlier, 2 hours before the game starts. Maybe not grind that whole time and like ranked or something, but just get it going, get it flowing, get your brain moving in the game. Talk to your teammates, make sure they're all there. Accountability. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a piggyback. I like the routine thing. That's something that's big in track. So I at Lord's work and coach our sprinters and hurdlers here.
Nice.
And whenever you get into the blocks, right, we say the same thing, do the same routine every single time, and it's the same thing. I think with esports, it's really good to have that same pattern every single time you go in. And then I think the big thing is like I said it before, being flexible. I think esports kind of more than most. There's so many times where you have to be able to be flexible, be able to be someone who can adjust to, what the other team's doing. It's obviously a lot, not as much as physical, but I think the mental is so strong in a lot of esports, especially, and some of it like is really really high in some, and so you just have to kind of understand that. I preach that to my team all the time of like. I like to think about like in the mentality like of other players, right? And say like, hey, if someone does something on one round, they're probably going to continue to do the same thing, right? And so like being able to witness patterns, and like I think that's really really how you're able to grow. And so that flexibility really helps you to be able to be like, hey, like, and learning to be flexible, it helps you from tilting because you're already like, hey, I've seen this before, or I dealt with this before, or I know I came into this match knowing that I'm gonna have to change something up, or I'm gonna have to change how I play here or there. That really helps.
I'd say you're back on the like routine and like the schedule there, making sure you're doing the things that work for you. I had like the same warm up routine if it was for track or if it was for esports or whatever else. I had like the same little routine that helped me feel better and more confident and ready for the game. And then also making sure you're getting plenty of sleep and eating well before, making sure you're not having anything, too much or too less, before a competition. I used to have a problem with track where I wouldn't eat enough before play or before running, but making sure you're, doing the right things beforehand, getting yourself prepared as much as possible.
Yeah, we have a tool that we developed at NASEF, and I dropped it in the chat earlier, but we call it the Gamers Check-In, and it's an acronym. G is for growth. And so am I doing the things that I need to do to keep growing and improving? A is activity. Am I doing physical activity and not just, sitting and grinding and damaging your body for the long haul? M is taking care of your mind. Are you resting? Are you relaxing? Are you sleeping enough to let your brain work the way that it should? E gets me every time is my physical environment a good place for gameplay or learning? And I always look around at my desk like it's pretty good, but I could make some improvement in my environment. R is relationships. Sometimes I think when you're competitive, you could tend to get really narrowly focused, and it's making sure that you have a variety of relationships that are building into you. And then S is sustenance, which Lamar was taking care of as we were jumping on, because he was like, I'm going between activity A to B to C, and I got to eat. And so making sure that you're eating so that you're not running on, fumes is super important also. Yeah.
I think the first in the middle, those middle acronyms are two of them are pretty, I would say kind of the hardest parts, is the activity outside esports, exercising, going outside, having fun, riding bikes, hitting the tennis ball off the baseball bat with your friends, playing home run derby or something, going outside, and sleep. I know gamers play all night and then they wake up for class at 8 a.m. You need to get the proper sleep and rest, and don't get burnt out. Take a break after the season, a 1-2 week break after the season's over.
And sleep too. I think especially with high schoolers, they are growing like crazy, and you need sleep to grow. So that's really important. So let's see. Well, I think we'll wrap up with just like general advice that you might have for students. So, we've got a lot of high school students that are going to see this and they're thinking about, what does my college path look like? Hopefully they're thinking all the way through to, what does my career path look like after that, to make sure they're making good choices for the schools that they go to. But I'd love to just have each of you give some advice to students as far as how can they be well prepared for college? What kinds of things should they be doing when they're in high school? What are you looking for when you're recruiting, that kind of thing? So let's see, Alec, you want to take this one first?
One of my biggest pieces of advice for any incoming collegiate esports players is that you're gonna have a lot more time. And one issue that I've noticed in players is that they may play their game a little too much, and like grinding, practicing more than they should, more than taking time on classes and things like that. And they'll end up struggling in the classroom, not getting enough sleep, getting burnt out on the game that they play too. After a year or two of keeping up this high, schedule or maintenance, playing this game a lot, you might end up getting tired of it and you playing too much. So moderation is great. Balancing things out, making sure you're still doing great in classes, getting those situated, then working on your game, and then whatever else.
Yeah, perfect. Moderation, that's the topic of the day. Yeah, for sure. James, how about you? Advice for high schoolers thinking about college and college esports?
Yeah, so I would say something I see a lot is social media. Make sure you're professional on social media, professional during the game. I know there's a lot of toxicity in the esports, and as college, it could, in that as eligibility, and I know competition council deals with it too. Being toxic can ruin some games and get some losses on your record. But yeah, work on your social media. Don't be posting random stuff that could get you in trouble. And just keep everything professional. Don't be scared to reach out to more than one college. Look at your options. Get your packages, your financial aid offers, and make the choice. Don't be scared to talk to coaches, because we're all pretty friendly and we'll talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think mine is, I'll say, especially for those of you wrapping up high school, and then going into your first year, enjoy where you're at. Like I know a lot of people are like, oh man, I can't wait to leave high school, go to college. I promise you, for the most part, like there are gonna be at least some memories that you're like, man, those are some great times back in high school. And the same thing in college. Um, I One of the coolest things that I see on YouTube is like college athletes like doing vlogs of like their season, right? Their travel, their times with their friends, the matches or games that they have. It doesn't necessarily have to be something like that, but make sure you're kind of enjoying the experience, not just the games and the wins, but just the time that you have with those teammates, right? Because especially those of you going out into college and being like esports players, you're some of the first players, right? And some of you who are playing in high school are some of the first high school players, like first high school players that are now some of the first kids that go from high school into college doing this. Like, enjoy the time, enjoy the experience. Make sure that you kind of get a full holistic approach and enjoyment of what you're doing. It's definitely more than wins and losses, and hopefully you get to a point where you're able to look back and be like, hey, those 4 or 5 took me 5. Those 4 or 5 years of my life were very, very good, and you loved the time and experience that you had.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I said that I was going to wrap up with that question, but you made me think of another one, Lamar. And that is like, when you're in high school, it's so overwhelming to choose what school you're going to go to. What do you think are important factors to consider when you're looking at a college?
I'd say definitely. A lot of people say obviously it's going to be like your team if you get along with the teammates. I like honestly, I think one that's kind of underrated is location. Some people like being in a college town that is kind of out in the middle of nowhere and like the college is it and you're kind of insular. Some people don't. I was happy that when I went to college out in DC and I loved it. I'm a city person. I love being in the city. So that was cool for me because I was able to experience, a brand new city where like my college was small, which I loved, and then my city was big. So it gave me a little bit of both options that I liked. Whereas like I was exploring like so many new neighborhoods in the DC area, so many new things to explore, new foods to try. So like, yeah, I think location is kind of important. You know, do you want to be far from home? Do you want to be kind of close to home? That's something that I think sometimes gets a little underrated when it comes to people's choice.
Yeah, that's great insight. James, any advice on what to consider when you're thinking about what college to go to?
Yeah, so when I was in high school looking at schools for soccer, I had multiple offers. I didn't know what to do, so I would go to the colleges, practice with the team, get the team atmosphere, get to know the team, and that kind of guided me through the way of picking where I wanted to go. But I actually ended up transferring 3 different schools. So, so yeah.
You know what? There's a point there though too, which is like sometimes I feel like that decision is so huge. And then if you made a mistake, like you made a mistake, and of course you have to talk with your family and make sure it makes sense financially and all of that. Yeah. But you know, if it's possible, if you feel like you're in the wrong place and you want to go somewhere else, then I mean, I did the same thing. I moved between my freshman and sophomore years. I changed schools. Yeah.
Yep. 3 different schools, 3 different majors.
Wow. Alec, how about you?
Yeah, so kind of the same thing there on the location part. My first 2 years were in Columbus, Ohio, and then my last 2 years in Ashland, Ohio, which is more rural. So there's a lot less, food options and things like that. So location is a big part. But yeah, back to the transferring part. If you're not enjoying where you're at, or if there's another better situation elsewhere, if you think there is, you can always transfer. And for me, I think all my credits transferred over as well. But for the most part, it's really accessible that way too.
Yeah, that is a good point to look at how much of what you've done is going to transfer and how it transfers. I think I went from, I can't remember now, I went from quarters to semesters. And so the units didn't transfer quite right. And so I had to end up making up a few classes just with whatever to fill in the missing units. But it's all good. It all works out in the end. So,
but yeah, there's so many schools out there. You guys will definitely find something that works for you.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you all so much for your time today and sharing your insights. And I think one of the things that is a great takeaway for me from this that you mentioned was, these coaches, these programs in colleges, they're so open. I'm so impressed with all 3 of you and all the other coaches that I've talked to from NACE who, really care about the students and really want to see them thrive. And so I would encourage high schoolers that if you're at that point where you're thinking about it, definitely reach out and, talk to the program directors or the coaches at the schools that you're interested in and, pursue well, get your questions answered so that you make a good decision. Don't leave anything hanging out there like, well, I wonder if. Go ahead and get those answered. So again, thank you for your time and the input that you've given to the students today. And good luck. Have fun.
All right. Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
Thank you.